Let's talk about the midterms. New CBS News Battleground Tracker. Let's put this up on the screen. Their headline here is Republicans head into final week with lead in seats. Voters feel things are out of control. CBS News Battleground Tracker poll. They are looking specifically at House seats here. And the way that they sketch this out is they have like a range of possibilities. The most likely possibility, according to their polling, is that Republicans win a majority and do so relatively comfortably, but not with the like sort of massive landslide that we expected early on. Democrats narrowly holding on to the House is still in the range of possibilities, but looking increasingly less likely. Let's go ahead and put some of the details here up on the screen. Let's go ahead and put this next piece up, which is interesting. Nation is really divided about what is at stake, which is a bigger concern. To be honest with you, this surprised me a little bit. You have a majority, 56%, saying that they are more worried about a functioning democracy, about the nation remaining a functioning democracy than they are a strong economy. So 56% to 44%. If you dig into those numbers, you find that Republicans are more likely to say they're interested in the strong economy and they are more likely to support Republican candidates, and Democrats are more likely to say we're interested in functioning democracy, and people who say that that is their primary concern are more likely to support Democrats. Digging even further into these numbers, there are additional troubling signs for the Democratic Party. Let's go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen. So they asked, okay, depending on who controls Congress, what do you think is going to happen with gas prices? Which was kind of a clever question, actually.
Great question.
53%, a majority of Americans, believe that if Democrats keep control of Congress, gas prices are going to go up, whereas only 21% say the same for Republicans. On do you think that they're going to go down, only 15% say that they think that Democrats will bring gas prices down, whereas 45%, so it's not a majority, but a healthy plurality, think that Republicans will bring down gas prices, and about a third say that neither one of these are going to have any kind of an impact. Not a good sign for Democrats. You also have crime rising to be a top 2 or 3 issue. Let's go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen. Republicans continue to have a significant advantage on which party makes you feel safer with regards to violent crime. And perhaps most damning of all, which to me, Saagar, really showed that the Republican messaging is landing. Go ahead and put this last piece up on the screen. When you ask voters, what do you think Democrats will actually do if they take control of Congress? Well, the first one, okay, this one is what Democrats have been overwhelmingly messaging on. 84% say, okay, they're going to pass a national right to abortion law. So the Democratic messaging there is landing. Everything else, not so great. 59% say they're going to open the U.S.-Mexico border. 53% say they're going to cut police funding. And only 51%, so a bare majority, says they will increase Social Security benefits. And over on the other side, Democrats have started to message a little bit about Republicans planning to cut Social Security. The numbers bear out that that isn't really landing with people. There aren't huge majorities that believe that that is the case if Republicans take control.
Another fascinating one is that voters do not feel like the Democrats have a clear plan for what they're going to do if they maintain power. More voters actually believe that than what Republicans are going to do. So I guess it's interesting. The Democratic messaging has worked. People are like, okay, we know what they're going to do.
Abortion, got it.
We care, yeah, but we also care about a whole lot of other stuff, and we don't know what you're going to do about it, which makes sense whenever you've been the party in power for 2 years. I think this is a catastrophic poll, and actually, I just continue to come back to this one. Feel things in the U.S. today are out of control, 79%, 21% under control.
Good.
It's actually quite simple. Like, that is not good for the people who are uniformly in power everywhere. Their margin, puts the Republicans at a 12-seat advantage. Look, there's a lot of noise in the polls coming out today. You and I were just talking. The New York Times had a slew of polls that are actually quite good for all the Democratic candidates. I just have no idea. There's no way to know. On average, though, the New York Times miss was about 5 points, given the fact that they have all the Democrats up by 6. I'm like, wow, that seems like a basic 50-50 toss-up. To me, I'm looking at this, the whole bigger concern, a functioning democracy and a strong economy. On one hand, you could be somewhat heartened about that, but people look at that very differently, right? So if you were to ask a hardcore MAGA person about functioning democracy, they'd be like, yeah, that means we need audits. That means we need election integrity. So people are going to look at that in a very different way.
Well,
these questions don't strike at the heart of, like, what are people going to vote on come November?
That is a good point, too, because so Democrats, and you might have the numbers in front of you right there. Democrats had the edge with voters who said their number one priority is a
Yes.
functioning democracy. And it was significant. It was like 2/3 to 1/3.
It's 63-29.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Republicans, though, had an even larger edge among voters who said the economy's number one. So even though you had more people saying, actually, I care most about a functioning democracy, the fact that you had a larger proportion of the strong economy people going like all in with Republicans ultimately is a problem for Democrats. I mean, it all sort of underscores what we've been saying for a while, that, you know, the issues that these parties decide to focus on, it does matter. Democrats have overwhelmingly been running ads on abortion, 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 so much so that Bernie Sanders has been sounding the alarm bells, along with Stan Greenberg and others, saying, guys, the economy is really important. People are saying this is their number one issue. You have to have some message on that. I'm going to be talking about President Obama on the campaign trail. He tried to do a little bit of that, but you can't do it if you don't have something affirmative and really concrete that you're like, if we get power, we are going to do X. They don't have that at all. And so what you can see here is if they had done 60% abortion ads rather than like 90% abortion ads, and 40%, here's how we're going to deliver economically for you and your family, it would have made a difference, because you can see the way the Republican ad messaging is working. You can see that the Democratic ad messaging is working. The things they are talking about are landing with voters. It's just Democrats went all in on one issue that is probably not going to be enough for people ultimately when they're very concerned about the economy and 79% say the country's out of control.
I just have no idea. This truly is one of those elections where anything is possible. Is it possible, you know, that these New York Times polls, which we'll do a whole segment on tomorrow, are they is that the actual picture? That really Republican enthusiasm and Democratic voter malcontent is just completely underpriced? Certainly possible. If you were to bet on every fundamental, though, you would say no way.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, you know, do I believe in magic? Like, not really.
Well, the Times article, which we've really previewed hard
right,
here
almost
now
previewed
at this
a little
point.
too hard.
One of the things they point out is that you have more voters who say they would like Republicans to take control of the Senate, but they like the Democratic candidate in their state better. And that gets down to that question of like, does candidate quality really matter? Is it going to make a difference? I tend to be skeptical that I think it makes a little bit of a difference. I tend to be skeptical that it is oftentimes the determining factor, especially in an era of such hard partisanship. But ultimately, I mean, it really is very hard to say how people are going to process everything that's going on and what these, you know, two very uninspiring parties are offering, to the extent that they're offering anything. One thing that CBS News pointed out is, if in the most hopeful scenario for Democrats, so for Democrats to really defy the odds, both historically and in terms of what the polls say at this point, and hold on to the House, it would take a huge surge in young voters that is not being picked up in the polls, that isn't at this point reflected even in the early turnout data. So that's what it would really take. I mean, if you wanted to construct a theory of the case, you could say, hey, student loan debt relief, you know, potentially descheduling marijuana and, you know, overturning the federal convictions for marijuana possession. Maybe that was enough of an impetus to young voters. Maybe Roe versus Wade, which, you know, young voters are looking at this and going like, oh my God, we're going backwards. Where is the country going? This is an issue that is, you know, really important and impactful for that generation. Maybe that's enough to sort of spur them to the polls in a way that pollsters aren't ultimately expecting. That's a kind of theory you would have to lean into if you expected Democrats at this point to be able to maintain control of the House.
I think that's correct. Look, again, everything is up in the air. I genuinely have no idea where things are going. The fundamentals all do look good for the Republican Party. On all of these, the issue by issue, I continue to remember that under Trump in 2020, everybody was like, yeah, but look at the polls. Yeah, but look at the polls. The best approximator for his eventual success or near success at the polls, coming only 40,000 votes shy, was I trust Trump on the economy, of which he was at 50-50. Here on the down ballot, you know, we're looking at 80-20. So that's just such a strong, reliable indicator over time that I'm like, cut out much of the noise and you can bet on that same, look, high crime, high inflation, party and power. It's like, I just can't get away from those three things, Krystal.
No, I agree with you.
Right.
I agree with you. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.